Hello, welcome back to the Notcast, episode 247. Good God, is Mark ever going to run out of records to talk about? Absolutely not. Today is the 6th of November 2022, and today I am going to talk about R.E.M's 15th studio album, Collapse Into Now, and the hits compilation, although it's not really hits, part lies, part heart, part truth, part garbage, as well as the single, Oh My Heart, a silly little booklet, and the end of the band, really. Now, today, 4 years ago today, I was watching U2 in Dublin at the end of their Experience tour, bringing the tour back home. They had 3 or 4 days left to go. And one of my things when I was younger, I remember listening to U2 at the Point in Dublin on the 31st of December 1989 and recording it off the radio onto a cassette and thinking, when I get older, I'm going to see U2 in Dublin. And that was my thing. I was like, that's one of my like 7 wonders of the world. And I've been very lucky. I've been able to do that 4 or 5 times in the days when bands still toured. And in fact, in a couple of weeks from now, I am going to see Bono from the U2 on his solo tour. So if you've been watching my stuff and thinking, when's Mark going to talk about the Bono autobiography? Well, first I've got to listen to the audiobook. Secondly, I've got to read the book. Thirdly, I've got to go and see Bono talk about it before I can give you the hot news as such, give you a hot take, although I guarantee you my hot take isn't going to be as bad as some other people's. And then 7 years ago today, 6th of November 2015, I was watching U2 at the Hydro in Glasgow, a huge mirrored reflectable silver testicle shaped venue that was actually probably the best show of the tour that I saw. And then if you go all the way back to the 6th of November 1991, I was watching Carter USM at the now defunct Hummingbirds in Birmingham on their After the Watershed tour. And I was, at that point, I was 18 years old, and I was very much of the view that I was able to stand in the same room as the bands that I loved, and I was able to get to see them play the songs live. And there was this incredible communion between the stage and the audience. And Bono talks about this in his book, actually. So sometimes he feels like on a good day, he's in the audience and he's watching the crowd, and the crowd are performing, and he just happens to be doing some singing. And I think that's a thing which some other people have said from time to time as well. One of the things which we didn't get to experience for this R.E.M album, Collapse Into Now, was any live shows. This is the last R.E.M studio album. It's a staggering 11 years old now, although it feels much, much fresher than that. And it was released on the 7th of March 2011, the 15th and final studio LP. And it was also the first R.E.M LP that had absolutely nothing in the way of live performances that went alongside it. So even Automatic for the People had that one-off show at the 40 Watt Club. New Adventures in Hi-Fi had a couple of small short sets which the band played, various like award ceremonies and stuff in charity shows, but they were like 4 or 5 songs at most. And Collapse Into Now had none of that. So the last time I saw R.E.M. in 2008, and bear in mind it's 14 years ago this month, they played their last show in Mexico, which I think was the 18th of November 2018. No, 2008. Sorry, I mixed my decades up there. 18th of November 2008 was their last show in Mexico, and they didn't play. So whereas a lot of my memories around R.E.M albums are linked to seeing the band live or hearing them on the radio or listening to the radio sessions or the radio broadcasts, or for the albums, which I didn't get to tour, is hearing the bootlegs come through on cassette, and then finally MP3, and then finally YouTube. I didn't have any of those experiences with Collapse Into Now. Collapse Into Now only exists as this. It's a record of an event, a recording of the band, as opposed to being able to experience the band playing in front of you. Now, most bands have one album that they don't tour. AC/DC have Power Up, their 17th studio album. U2 have Passengers, which technically speaking isn't a U2 album. Rolling Stones have most of them in the 80s. Depeche Mode have Ultra, for example. R.E.M have Collapse Into Now. R.E.M have a damn good reason why they didn't tour this record, because there wasn't an R.E.M by the time this record was released. They just didn't tell anyone about it. So during the recording of the album, there was a conversation in a studio, and I can't remember where it was, where I think Michael Stipe said, "I think I need to be away from this for a long time," and I think Mike Mills said, "How about forever?" And Peter Buck said, "Sounds about right to me." And that was it. That was the end of R.E.M. No arguments, no running off with the other guys' wives or anything like that. It was just the band had run out of roads. And actually, there's a lot of dignity in that. I remember the adverts for Pulp's Party Hard single. I am now very, very old indeed, or I prefer to think of it as experienced. But there was one of those things where someone said to Jarvis, and he said, "The best trick is knowing when to leave and not to wish that you'd left 2 minutes sooner." R.E.M. left at exactly the right time for exactly the right reasons, which is that they had done everything that they had to do. They felt that they'd reached the end of the road. The split decision was unanimous by the sound of it. There was a tour meeting somewhere like Prague or Bratislava or somewhere, where the band spent 4 hours in a hotel room in the summer of 2008 to talk about, we've been offered some extra shows and we could play, a second round in arenas in America or whatever. And none of the band wanted to do it. I think perhaps what Peter Buck, said, "I was sat there going, I could be walking around an art museum or a cathedral now, but instead I'm stuck in a boring hotel conference room talking about live shows on a day off. I shouldn't be doing this." And obviously, when you've been touring for a very long period of time, and I think the decision to split was because how many more mountains do you have to climb? How many more tours do you have to make? The band had toured the world something like 12 times. I mean, in the previous 10 years, they toured in 99, 2003, 2004, 2005, 2008. They'd been around the world 4 times in the previous decade. And when I last saw them at Twickenham, the top row of Twickenham was empty. And I kind of got the sense that, the band had exhausted both their fan base and their own excitement for it. Saying, well, what more do you get? You go around the world again. Fine, done that 15 times. You get to play in stadiums. Yep, done that dozens of times. You get to make money. Well, I've got more money than I can ever spend. So what's the point of doing it? It's not as if your ego needs satisfaction. So if you should only do it because you really, really want to do it. And one of the great things around R.E.M. is that they've turned down offers to reform. They've reformed once. They played someone's wedding. I played one song. It wasn't rehearsed, and that was in 2016. And that's it. That's all they've done afterwards. And it wasn't planned. It was a very spontaneous thing, apparently. Maybe it wasn't a wedding. Maybe it was a birthday party. I don't know. I wasn't there, of course. But they've got to the point where, and this is where integrity is really, really important. So being the idealistic old fool, or young fool that I am, I think that there is a lot of integrity that comes in being in a band. If you're in a band, you've got the opportunity to do something for a living that almost everybody who's in the crowd would probably want to do if they had the opportunity to do it. If you've got the financial security to do it, you're then at the point of going, well, I can do things because I want to do them, not because I have to do them. Now, I all know, all of us go to work for money, and we do it because largely we haven't got enough money to be able to go, no, I'm not doing anything for the rest of my life. R.E.M. were at the point where financially they were secure, they didn't have to work. So if they're going to tour, it'll be because that's something that they genuinely really want to do and they're excited about doing. And if you don't feel excited about it and you're only doing it for the money, you're cheating both yourself as an experience, you're cheating the audience because you're faking them, and you're cheating your own life because you're doing something you don't want to do in return for money that you don't need. And if you don't need the money, then why would you want to do something that you wouldn't want to do? I mean, surely with money is a form of power, provides a form of access. And what that then does is it gives you the opportunity to expand your decisions so that you aren't driven by the need to, I need to go to do a tour because I need to make lots of money. And I don't think R.E.M. were particularly, motivated by that. Savvy businessmen, but not necessarily mercenary. They'd reached the end of their contract with Warner Brothers. They'd fulfilled their commitments to the label by delivering the Collapse Into Now album. Like any other band, they'd got to the point where, right, so we need to make decisions now at this point around, do we sign another deal? Do we then go around the merry-go-round again? And if so, what does that look like? Or do we just go, no, we've fulfilled our commitment, we've completed the mission, we've done what we want to do. And having seen footage of the most recent Genesis tour, for example, I think there's a lot to be said for quitting whilst you're ahead, because having seen that footage of Genesis, who I don't like, by the way, but I'm looking at him going, you're knackered and you're old and your body is not strong enough to do this anymore. So the concept of seeing maybe, a 75 or an 80-year-old Michael Stipe on stage, only do it because you love it and because you want to do it. Don't do it because you want the money. Don't do the John Cleese thing of doing something because you've divorced yet another wife. And I mean, certainly there's an element of thinking, well, the work will keep you young and working will keep you flexing those muscles that you have and keep you vital and relevant. But if you don't want to do it anymore, don't do it. Absolutely not. And I think that it's a testament to the band's integrity that they got out rather than just kept going for loads and loads of money if they don't necessarily believe it. They had, and all the signs are there. Collapse Into Now is an album where all the signs are very, very obvious. And I had a moment when I was watching them at Twickenham and I thought, I think this is the last time I'm going to see R.E.M. I don't know why. I had that sense when I saw Depeche Mode actually on their most recent tour in 2017. And I just got the sense of, I'm not sure I'm going to see Depeche Mode again. Now, obviously, that's one death later now with Depeche Mode, but you do get the sense of things aren't going to be the same. I had the same sense a couple of other times with a couple of other bands when I saw them, and I thought, I think this is it. I think this is the end of the road for them. And it's quite a strange feeling to have, and it's very difficult and elusive to put your finger on it, but this is most definitely what I felt when I saw R.E.M. at Twickenham, and it's most definitely what I felt when I listened to Collapse Into Now. So all the signs were there right from the off. First and foremost, the band are literally waving goodbye on the cover. Nobody got it, and it's there. It's the first album where they're on the cover, and it's the first album where they're waving goodbye on the cover. They do have photographs on the Fables album, but that's part of everything else. This is the first album where it's just pictures of, three guys and they're waving goodbye. Secondly, the title, Collapse Into Now. It's very, very, very indicative of what's going on in the record. Collapse Into Now tells you that this is the end. The band are collapsing, they're folding in on themselves, and they're falling into the current moment, and there is nowhere else that you need to be rather than right here, right now, and then you're collapsing into it. So it's very clearly indicating this is the end. The second one is there's a song on here called All the Best. That's literally how people close letters, saying all the best wishes, I'll never talk to you again, whatever it is. They might well have just had a song called Yours Sincerely or something, or maybe Hardened Regards, who knows. But all the best, all the signs are very, very clearly here. And it's the sound, when you listen to it, of a band having kind of drifted a little bit. So the relationship that exists between the 3 and 5 people that are in the band, so obviously Michael Stipe, Peter Buck, Mike Mills, plus the sadly missed Bill Riflin on drums and Scott McCoy on guitar and keyboards and vocals. And there's a sense when I was listening to this, and I re-listened to this again recently, of the band having moved slightly further apart than they were previously. And there were no hard feelings, no bad blood or anything, but just the band were drifting away from who they had been previously, and they perhaps weren't as tight-knit as they once were. They'd been everywhere. What else do you get when you tour apart from money? And the privilege of the job is to be able to decline to do it sometimes. And maybe you could look at Collapse Into Now and think of it as being a midlife crisis in some respects, because the band are very clearly asking questions lyrically, certainly Michael Stipe, about who am I? What do I do? Is this it? Is this all I am? Is there nothing more to it? And since there was no tour, there was only interviews, the record was pretty much all that there was. And listening to it again the other day, and I kind of thought very, very clearly that this felt like it was felt like it was the end. And even the packaging, by the way, this was the first R.E.M. album not to have a deluxe and expanded packaging option since probably Green in 1989. So the only packaging option you had was if you bought it from HMV, it came with a slipcase, and the slipcase was just a replication of what was on here anyway. So you open up the triple gatefold sleeve, and you kind of get a sense that yes, Michael Stipe is quite interested in visual art and presentation and all that type of stuff. But again, there's the band there, three of them walking, Michael on a tightrope, doing a high wire act, wibbly wobbling with his arms, and almost a sense of there, instead of it being a circle, it's a circle, but it's come to an end. There's an exit out there. It's all, there, if you look at the imagery. So collapse into now 12 R.E.M. songs of varying degrees of brilliance, and you get for the first time in a long time, if not ever, the sleeve art tells you what the lyrics are. The album opens with track 1, which is Discover. It was the 5th single that was released on the album on the I think the 11th of March. And it's a song that gives us a sense of purpose. It was not the first song to be heard from the album. The first single that was released from the album was, I think, let me just quickly check my numbers here. I think it's It Happened Today was the first one. I could be wrong. It Happened Today, which was first released on the 20th of December 2010. And It Happened Today is a song that I think it kind of talks about being what it's like. So it says it's like, this is not a parable, this is a terrible thing. It happened today. We'll leave, I'll close in on a promise. After all I've done today, I've earned my voice. It happened today. It's a lyric around saying, this was here, we were here, it's now, it happened, and it was done. It was finished. And then you kind of, looking at it in retrospect, it's not unambiguous, the lyrics that are on this album. The music is strong. The music is, I think, more awake. Certainly, it's not my favourite R.E.M. album by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly nowhere near as boring as Reveal or Around the Sun. Don't argue with me. Music is objective and subjective at the same time, and beauty exists in the eye of the beholder. And to me, my favourite R.E.M. albums are Up, New Adventures in Hi-Fi, and Monster, which probably makes me a monster in many people's eyes. I think Collapse Into Now is as good an exit record as anybody has ever released. I think it's fair to say. It really is a determined last throw of the dice. Track 1, Discoverer, there's the lyrics, by the way, is the last single to be released from the album, and it bookends the album because Discoverer itself is built on a strident, pummeling riff, which is also reprised at the end of track 12, Blue, and you kind of get a sense of closure and coming full circle, and of the band kind of coming back to where they belong. So it's very clear, I think. And I kind of listened to it and went, I listened to it before the band split up, and I was like, is this the end? It felt like it could have been. And Discoverer kind of sits upon a lyrical conceit, the idea that man does not create, he discovers. All this is a band in a process of discovery, going to new places and finding things that are already there that just nobody has found before. There's the opening lyric is, hey baby, this is not a challenge, it just means that I love you as much as I always said I did. And just the slightest bit of finesse might have made a little less mess, but it was what it was, and let's get on with it now, Discover. And that's it, really. It's a lyric around just going, what an incredible journey it was. We went out there, we discovered incredible things. We made a bit of a mess on the way, but it was worthwhile. And then we've got All the Best, which is the second track from the album, which has a lyric which is very clearly around walking away to whatever's next. So the lyric is on that is, for example, I think I'll sing and rhyme. I'll give it one more time. I'll show the kids how to do it. Fine. I'll hold the mirror up. You tell me what is what. Tell me which part of my story stuck. I'm the part of your dreams that you don't even understand, and it's just like me to overstay my welcome, man. Again, that lyric, all the best, tied in with that sense of all the best, goodbye, farewell, adios, auf Wiedersehen, farewell. It's kind of like saying, now there's a sense of baton passing in the lyric of Stipe kind of going, I'm going to pass the baton over to the next generation. I'll show the kids how to do it. And then it's time to get on with the rest. So it's just like me to overstay my welcome. Let's do it one more time and show the kids how to do it. And then, it's all the signs are there. Clearly all the signs are there. We've got You Berlin, which was the third single, which made, I think, number 25. And was released on the 11th of January, and that's a fine song, but it's not. How should one put it politely? It's not amazing. I listened to it and it felt a little bit like R.E.M was starting to repeat themselves. And there's a couple of songs on here that are very reminiscent of other songs. One, for example, is almost "Oh My Heart," which is the next single, is almost a repeat or a sequel to Houston. The lyric in Discoverer refers to Houston as well, the song from Accelerate. So both it's the most obviously nostalgic R.E.M album as well, because it's drawing parallels with the past and telling you where it's been on the way. New Berlin, by the way, the album was recorded in Hansa Studios in Berlin, a place that I have been with Mark. Although we didn't manage to get in, we managed to get there, which is something itself. U Berlin being, firstly, I think the Uber, which is obviously a German word, as well as a taxi firm, tied in with Berlin around almost kind of going, well, we're here and we're visiting the lands where Bowie made the records, and Depeche Mode made the records, and Iggy Pop made the records, and Kraftwerk, and New, and Tangerine Dream, and all these other bands made these records, and we're here, as musical tourists. U2 as well, of course, kind of going where our predecessors and our contemporaries and our inspirations have been, and that's where we are, and this is here where we are, and we're on that journey of discovery. And then there's that lyric around, hey now, take your pills and make your breakfast, comb your hair and off to work, crash land, no illusions, my imagination ran away. And there's a sense in collapse into now of and R.E.M. one of the very, very few bands that have done this, that have actually talked about going to work. They did it on Day Sleeper, they did it on Aftermath, they did it on I think Wanderlust as well, and a couple of other songs where there's very clearly that sense of knowing, and they haven't lost touch of, where people write songs, sometimes very few people write songs about work. But R.E.M. wrote Finest Work Song. They're a band that know that, work is part of life, and life is part of work, and part of your life, and what matters when you're an artist is the work. And it's all around, you clock in, you go to work, you do the thing, you get paid, and there's not, it's grounded in the way in which some bands have never been. If you listen to Depeche Mode, for example, I don't think, apart from Construction Time, again the title track for that, and some of the tracks around there, work hard, but very few bands actually write around sitting in an office or going to work and doing the stuff that you're paid to do. Very, very few bands do this. R.E.M. do it multiple times, and on New Berlin, they're kind of going, I know that this is changing, and we'll walk the streets to feel the ground. I'm chasing you, Berlin, and there's an element of going, life is passing on, the world is moving in a different direction to me, and there's that sense of losing touch, not in a bad way, but of just knowing you're part of an older generation now. You're part of an older guard. You can't be at the cutting edge forever. You can't stay young forever. And going, actually being in the charts and having hits is kind of like a young man's game, and we're becoming old men, and kind of going, well, there you are. And even that goes into Oh My Heart, which was the only commercial CD released from the album. Here is the CD single, Oh My Heart, only released in Germany, the last R.E.M. commercial single during the band's existence. And it opens with, the kids have a new take on faith. I came home to a city half erased. I came home to face what we faced. And the storm didn't kill me, the government changed. And there you are, really. I mean, that's the kids have a new take. They've got a new idea. I'm an old man. I've got old man's ideas and old man's concepts around that. And then the storm didn't kill me, the government changed is a direct paraphrase of the line from Houston, where he goes, if the storm doesn't kill me, the government will. And I've got to get off my whatever it is. Really, I haven't thought about that for a while. But it's then the band's just going, that's it. I'm out overweight and out of date, as Elvis impersonator, the Manic song, once had it. And that was Oh My Heart was single 4, and then there was It Happened Today, which obviously was the first track. So the next one, Every Day Is Yours to Win, track 6, side 1. Again, it kind of does that thing. It kind of refers a little bit lyrically to Drive, where he talks about, and the tick-tock clock with the rock and roll and the bridge and the toll and the brilliance and the light, and goes tick-tock, hey kids, rock and roll, nobody tells you where to go. And every day is new again, and every day is yours to win. And there's an element of kind of looking at this and going, I need to start again. I need to do this and start again from a different perspective. And flip over the album. Side 1, side 2. Side 1 is called X. Side 2 is called Y. Obviously, the two genders, or well, obviously there's multiple genders these days, but that is how X and Y axis fits in with the X and Y chromosomes that you would have. Mine Smell Like Honey, which is the second track to be released from the album, came out on the 18th of January 2011, and I don't like it. It's a big, dumb, stupid rock song, and nobody does big, dumb, stupid rock songs that are smart quite the way that R.E.M. do it. Although for some reason I always think that Mine Smell Like Honey is about farts, which I don't really necessarily want to admit. But there's the element of people going, well, your shit doesn't stink is one phrase that I used to hear from one person, and yeah, they kind of had a blind spot around their own foibles and faults and idiosyncrasies, and kind of thinking, they say everyone's got to sit to shit, and I'm like, well, yeah. But at the same point, they also thought that because what they did, because they were doing it, was automatically bulletproof and better than anybody else. And I'm kind of sat there going, yeah, no, I don't think so. That is exactly the kind of personality that probably would have thought that their farts smell like honey. Track 8 is Walk It Back, and it has an element of historical revision in the lyric. A lot of the lyrics on this album are around the relationship that somebody has to history and to the change of circumstances that exist around them. And so looking at what's happening and kind of like even one of the tracks on Part Lies is we all go back to where we belong. That idea of time as a circle, the idea of history as endless and repeating, the times of generations slowly moving, and then there comes a point when suddenly you're yesterday's news and you didn't even know it. In fact, you're probably tomorrow's chip papers. And Walk It Back is one of those songs where it says, time it cannot abide, reverse and rewind, erase and revise, and we'll try to start again. And I don't know how long. And it's all written on the wall very clearly. These songs are all goodbyes. Maybe there's Alligator, Aviator, Autopilot, Antimatter, whatever the fuck that means, which was remixed, but not particularly good. And Hey Alligator, You've Got a Lot to Learn. Now that sounds like a song that would be ideal to be played on stage, but it never got the chance to be played on stage. I think it would have been great live. It would have been like a Star 69 type song, but it never got the chance. And we're into the end of the album, so there's 4 R.E.M. songs left on their last studio album, and That Someone Is You takes that number down. That's song 9, and it opens with, I think, That Someone Is You is a call to arms to the next generation. It name checks New Order, it name checks Young Marble Giants, Scarface, all these historically lost parts of culture, and kind of almost suggesting, and there's the lyric in there says, I sat quietly waiting for someone else to make the move. That someone is you. And the idea that handing the baton on in the same way that there's the lyric in All the Best, I think, around showing the kids how to do it, and coming home to the kids have a new take. My heart, it's kind of going, I'm passing over to you. I'm passing it over. It's your thing to take forward, and what you do next. With that, you think about all the other lyrics that we've got in the album, they're all very, very clear on that. From Discoverer, which is about looking back at the past and reckoning with your past and your history, and about how man does not create, he discovers. Around All the Best, which is about somebody overstaying their welcome. You Berlin, which is about a list of all the things that happen, irrespective of and You Berlin, by the way, always reminds me of a poem that I've written, and a feeling I've had, which is the day after somebody died, I still got up, I brushed my teeth, I put on my clothes, I went to work, I did the work, I ate the food. Life carried on. You Berlin is all about, hey man, take your pills and make your breakfast and comb your hair and go off to work. It's all around being, erased by history, and history carrying around us. And as John Lennon said, history is the thing that happens to us when we're busy making other plans. Oh My Heart has this sense of feeling about being almost overlapped by reality and new ideas. There's a point where you suddenly realize, oh, you're not the new thing anymore. You're the old thing. And then there's a time when you're the old thing, and then you have a chance to come back and to be seen as almost like a band that's on a reunion or reformation trail, which is a career move. Some bands do it. Pulp have very recently announced and sold out a lot of shows as a result of that. And you know, every day is yours to win. It's about, you know, the moment where you know that your time has passed and it's over and something has changed and you have to start again and recast and reinvent yourself. Um, and Walk It Back almost kind of addresses the fact that he's splitting a career move, and then it's going, I wouldn't walk it back. So you can't turn away. You asked me to stay, but something needs to change. Why can't you walk it back? And then we've got Marlon Brando, and I. And that is pretty much, if someone said, quick, throw all the R.E.M. lyrics into an AI generator and come up with the idea for a song, it would do exactly that, and that's exactly what it would be called. And then there's the last song on the last R.E.M. album is Blue. Blue is not a coincidental title, it's a deliberate title. And Blue takes its title from, I think, although I don't think this has ever been clearly addressed, perhaps the first R.E.M. bootleg LP, which was called Blue, which was the show at Nottingham Rock City in 1984 that was broadcast on BBC Radio. And kind of having the last song on your last album be named after the first bootleg that anybody released about your album and about your band is pretty niche, but it's there. And I think Peter Buck would very definitely be aware of that. He would be the guy that would collect the bootlegs. He would have had a copy of the R.E.M. bootleg LP Blue in his shelves, and he would have known that. And it's Blue is the last song by R.E.M. on the last album. It features guest vocals from Patti Smith, reprising her appearance on Ebo the Letter, but obviously in a different way. And it features guitar from Lenny Kaye, who plays in Patti Smith's band, or at least I think he did at some point. And that is R.E.M.'s Collapse Into Now CD. I don't have the vinyl because I wasn't buying vinyl at the time, and it hasn't had its reissue and repress yet. That's R.E.M.'s Collapse Into Now, which I think is an album that is very clear in so much as the band are literally saying and waving goodbye on the cover. Now, that wasn't the end for the band. There was a little bit more, a little bit of distance left to run in terms of what they did. But it was very clear there that the band were saying goodbye in Collapse Into Now. And when I listened to it, and I kind of thought, is this it? Is this the end? And then, of course, that answer was provided. There was the CD single, About My Heart, which was released in Germany. And that was back to the track called NOLA 42610. Presumably, that's kind of like having a song called I Wrote This Song in Mississippi on the 26th of April 2010. It is a unexceptional instrumental B-side. It really is. And there was interviews and things like that. But then came the announcement in late 2011 that R.E.M. were going to split, and they released their final compilation, Part Lies, Part Heart, Part Truth, Part Garbage, which is when somebody asked Peter Buck way back when, what would you call the best of R.E.M.? And he said, well, I'd call it, Part Lies, Part Heart, Part Truth, Part Garbage. And lo and behold, somebody somewhere remembered that, and here we are today. This is not a hit set. It is chronological, but it doesn't feature all the singles. So, for example, it starts with Gardening at Night, and it doesn't feature, let's just quickly go through some of the tracks that are on here. Radio Free Europe, that was a single. Talk About the Passion, no, that wasn't. Sitting Still, I can't remember. So Central Rain, yes. Rockville, yes. Driver 8, yes. Life and How to Live It, it's a promo single. Begin the Begin, definitely not. Fall on Me, yes. Finest Work Song, The One I Love, Stand. Get Up wasn't a single. Country Feedback wasn't a single. It doesn't have Man on the Moon. Oh, it does have Man on the Moon, doesn't it? But it doesn't have Drive. It doesn't have Near World Heaven. It doesn't have Radio Song. It doesn't have let's think now. It doesn't have Drive on there. It doesn't have Find the River. It doesn't have Strange Currencies, Tongue, Bang and Blame, or Ebo the Letter. It doesn't have Bittersweet Me's not on there. It doesn't have Day Sleeper. It doesn't have Suspicion. I'll Take the Rain. It's basically, it's not all the singles. It's just R.E.M. selection and what they regard to be their finest material. Now the cover quite cleverly lists the 5 dominant formats over time. Cassette. R.E.M's first demo tape was on cassette in 1980. Then their first 7-inch single, Radio Free Europe. Then their first LP. This is the 12-inch or the LP. Then it moves to the CD. And then finally, the international symbol for Wi-Fi and streaming. So the cover art reflects the changes in formats which have happened over the 30 years which the band were in existence. And then that is kind of like writ very large on the cover there with the cassette, the 7-inch LP, CD, Wi-Fi, and the thing came on 2 CDs. So that is the cover art, which of course ties in with the graphic sensibility that we have for Collapse Into Now up here. And I'm always thinking, by the way, when I do these videos, about what would look good as an introductory thumbnail. And I think this is going to be it. There, that's it. Now it makes it nice and easy for me to select that one out. But there's 3 new songs on this R.E.M. Greatest Hits. The 3 new songs are A Month of Saturdays, We All Go Back to Where We Belong, and Hallelujah. Effectively, the last 3 R.E.M. songs that there are. You go through the booklet here. Again, this is probably a 4 LP set that probably costs £100 on Discogs, which of course they'll probably almost definitely never repress. We've got commentary from the band members about each one of the songs, photographs of them, of course. It's all black and white, so it's done a little bit on the cheap, but it fits in with the R.E.M. ethos. And then you've got the last 3 songs, which are A Month of Saturdays, We All Go Back to Where We Belong, and Hallelujah. Now, A Month of Saturdays is almost, if not the shortest R.E.M. song. I think the only other song that comes anywhere near it might be, is it That Someone Is You? Maybe, I'm not sure. Or maybe Houston. It's 1 minute 40 seconds. So in 100 seconds, it gets it all over. But A Month of Saturdays, really interesting, is the most obvious song about clocking off that I've ever heard. So it's a song that says, right, here comes the weekend. My job is done. A month of Saturdays. I'm about to have, it's effectively, it's a retirement song. I'm going, yep, job is done. Finished, kaput, over. I'm finished. I'm out. I'm done. I'm out of here, as Electrolyte has it. And then we have We All Go Back to Where We Belong, which is a circular song. And I think the title really reflects on 2 things. Firstly, obviously, Discoverer and the reprise of Discoverer that comes at the end of Blue on Collapse Into Now. But also the idea is that everything is circular. What goes around comes around. 7-inch, 12-inch LP, CD, they're all circular. Everything repeats itself in the end. And the question that the song is asking is this what you really want? Are you absolutely sure? Because this is where we're going to go. And then the last one is Hallelujah. And according to the description on here, it's a big, thundering, chorusy song with a regret-filled sounding verse. And it's a piece of music that's been floating around for a year or 2 from Michael's suitcase of things that don't end up getting used. And then this is one of them. And that was it. That's the R.E.M. song. So the last R.E.M. song was Hallelujah. And I must admit, when I heard it and I was like, I'm about to hear my last R.E.M. song. I don't know if I want to hear my last R.E.M. song. But then I played it. I'm like, okay, that's it. Now, what's fitting and appropriate is the last word and the lyrics to Hallelujah are the first words of the first song, which was released as a single by R.E.M. The word is radio. Radio ran through R.E.M. like a stick of rock, from Radio Free Europe to Radio Song to the last line of Hallelujah. Radio is exactly what it was all about. It was about the transmission of information and ideas from one person to another through the use of technology, in the same way that cassette, 7-inch, LP, CD, and Wi-Fi, or radio, depending on your point of view, you can listen to radio on the internet, all happened in the same way. And it brought R.E.M's story full circle. We all go back to where we belong. So that is it. That's my R.E.M. That's all the R.E.M. albums, all the compilations, the best of every single song. I ain't gonna rank them. I've told you what my favourite ones are anyway. But that is the 3 decades of R.E.M. And what I can say is, and what I absolutely do respect R.E.M. for at the moment, and hopefully I will never have to eat my words on this, is that the band, when they said they split, they split. They didn't go back. They didn't walk it back. They didn't get paid enough to do it. They're a band that now operate in the world of being a legacy and a history, and they manage and control and look after that legacy and the history. They're not making new songs. They're not touring. They've quite literally said, no, that's it. We've completed what we said we were going to do. and they all seem pretty happy in that environment. The last bit of news is that Bill Berry has a new band, which was probably the most unexpected thing that I've heard. I heard the single. I can't remember the name of the band now. They've probably got a name like Bad News Bears or something like that. But I've seen it, I've heard it, it sounds good. I'm going to go and put a link to it down there. So all is not yet lost. Now, if you want your R.E.M solo stuff, Peter Buck is almost definitely playing the R.E.M more this weekend, and if he hasn't, he played it last weekend. Mike Mills is doing his baseball project, and everything is just kind of moving along nicely. But Bill also has his band where he plays drums, and it's lovely to hear. It sounds just like R.E.M, which is pretty much why taking the cliche from, I think, when the House Martins split up, they said because of musical similarities, and maybe that's why R.E.M split up, is that they were too similar to each other. But there you are. It's been a fantastic experience being an R.E.M fan over the past 30 years. I've loved this band, and they've been, that band that were, if you were that weird kid in the corner that people didn't want to go out with, if you were the guy that didn't have very much money and bad hair and lots of spots and stuff, R.E.M knew who that guy was, because R.E.M, or at least some of R.E.M, were that guy at some point, and they tried to work their way through it and to escape their way through it by making music. And their music, like all great bands, is music that helped us see the world in a slightly different way and change the view that we had of the reality around us. It's been an absolute blast being an R.E.M fan over the years. I've seen some incredible shows, and they've got a legacy of records, which is really important. And that's what matters, is all we leave behind, all that's left, are the recordings, as William Burroughs said. I have no fantastic conclusion to this, no witty epilogue to come up with, apart from to say, I loved this band. I still do love them. They grew with me, and they changed with me, and they soundtracked huge parts of my life, and the songs Stand Up Now are still being bloody marvellous. And what more can you ask of a band than for you to be able to listen to them and not kind of think 10, 20, 30 years later, as I do with some of my bands. Sometimes I listen to records from 30, 40 years ago that I liked, and I go, what was I thinking? It wasn't very good. I have never thought that about R.E.M, and I probably never will. And that is as good a summary as anyone can have. They have aged like wine, and some bands have aged like milk. Right, Notcast 247. That one's in the bag. Thank you for listening to me monologue about R.E.M for 42 and a half minutes. I will wrap up here. I have a couple of thoughts about what I'm going to be doing next, but I think I'll mention those in another one. No, I'll mention them now. So again, I've been thinking about, talking about one specific year in my life, maybe a calendar year, like what 1974 was like, for example, for me. I don't really remember, because I was aged between 6 months and 18 months that year. That would be one option. Another one is that if you have any questions, then you can, of course, put them into the comments, comments, and I will answer them. And in the meantime, stay beautiful. Please do subscribe, and I will see you all soon. It's the end of me talking about the R.E.M albums, and I feel fine. Thank you, and see you soon. Bye.